Just before we fully begin, we would like to thank the original custodians of this land in Australia, where me and Reezy are, and as well as Sean's in America. It's third episode of Baijiu Billabong, and it's me, Temuel, and I'm with, as usual, Reezy.
Hey.
And we also have a special guest today, Sean Kang, a member of Qiao Collective. So yeah, welcome, Sean. How are you today?
Hi, thanks so much for having me today.
Yeah.
He knows.
It's all quiet here so far. I mean, it's I don't. As soon as the president starts rolling around, we'll have another full day.
You're in Texas, yeah? Oh.
I'm in the United States, but I'm no longer in Texas. But yeah, thank you so much for your what we would call land acknowledgement statement. Indeed, also we in the United States have the original custodians of the land. Of course, we have the movement Land Back going on right now, when our esteemed president decided to visit the Black Hills without the consent of the original custodians of the land. But
Right.
one thing to keep track of.
So where are you based right now?
I'm in California, which is all unceded land. So that's a small little detail.
Okay, it must be a lot of indigenous groups in that area. I don't really know much about Native, American people, unfortunately. Yeah. So at the moment, we saw your talk with Qiao on Qiao Collective. It was on Billy for around the Cold War.
Yeah, that
you
was
were pretty damning on Americans on that side, seeing as you are born in America. How come?
That was something that Billy talked. It was kind of amusing because Billy has the those what's it called in English? I don't know what they're called in English. Those like kind of people can type in things and it kind of like flies across the screen.
Yeah. What is that?
And half of those were basically saying, "Is this guy from Australia?"
Yeah, I thought you're from Malaysia when I heard the accent. Because you don't have that, because you told me you're from near Houston or Dallas.
Well, Texas, yeah, Central Texas, that area, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, I can't tell the accent, but
No, nobody can. But I think most people were doing it because I was like wearing like a beanie and a scarf because people were all the comments were
In
like,
Texas?
"Oh, it's winter in Australia right now." So, but honestly, the beanie was because my hair, like 4 months in quarantine, my hair is not in presentable shape. So it was like Chow's first like major public appearance. I couldn't afford to make Chow look like a.
Wait, Regan, do you get cold in Brisbane? Isn't that like sunshine everywhere? Gold Coast nearby?
Yeah, for me, if it hits 25 degrees, I start getting cold and rugging up. I'm weak for cold. It's paradise up here.
Yeah.
But we have 4 weeks, but it's good now. It's perfect. Yeah, living
As
the
long as
dream.
you're keeping safe in Victoria, I know things are getting hairy in that area.
Yeah, it's just been stuck in my house for the last 2 weeks, but it's great. Just been eating a lot of pad thai. Yeah, but so if people don't know, Regan's from Brizzy, which is like the north, which is the south, like the south of the Northern Hemisphere. So it's hot.
Right.
It's like Florida.
Right.
It's hot. Yeah.
Right.
I'm at the bottom of the redneck country, so it's bearable for everyone. But as soon as you step outside that little area, it gets pretty wild.
Do y'all say redneck as well?
No, we did Bogan.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think Bogan's like more of a suburban type. I guess no, redneck's definitely an American word.
Right.
I think it's one that suits.
I mean, I
good,
haven't used that word in a while because
It's actually
like
a working class thing, isn't it? Redneck, because they use the word red ties,
yeah.
like socialist miners.
actually in America is nowadays more like I think more of like a rural worker with redneck, because the idea I think is because you're like out on the farm all day, so you get a nasty sunburn on the back of your neck. But it's been a while.
It's totally rural. They're not a real redneck in my image of America is not proletarian. They're some sort of totally living off their little plot of land in the
Yeah.
in the hills.
Socialism with Chinese characteristics. They're agrarian farmers.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
not in that strand, not in that strand. No, a redneck in America, unfortunately, like rightly or wrongly, does have quite a few connotations attached to it. So,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
I haven't used the term in a while because I mean, when I was in Texas, we would say it every so often. But now I'm elsewhere. I'm now in the urban core of the United States, so I have other people to deal with now.
Yeah. Yeah. How
So,
did you guys get together with Qiao Collective, or how did it begin?
I'm actually not too sure about the origins of the organization, but it did start like how January of this year. It's a very young organization.
oh shit.
And it was mostly because of COVID, because of all the like it kind of brought out the yellow scare in the yellow peril in the United States in droves. I mean, not only that, but you even had like I mean, I will never forget this, but you even had our elected, well, not elected, but you even had our officials, government officials, saying like, oh, this would be good for bringing back manufacturing jobs to the United States. So you basically had the United States government, at least a figure, openly saying that he wants more Chinese people to die.
Oh yeah, I
So
remember that. That backfired now,
so
hasn't?
it was in this context that Qiao Collective was formed and then became and then I think they did start on Twitter, but then they kind of started from there. Um, but yeah, I know it's been growing really quickly in the last few weeks, but because I think people are frustrated with the dialogue, COVID has been like a really big trigger for a lot of things, and I
Absolutely.
think I wouldn't be comfortable saying that the Asian American diaspora has quite been, I don't want to use this word, but hasn't quite been woken up yet, especially given the latest Twitter discourse on like Kamala Harris. But
Oh God.
there's definitely a demand for the kind of voice that Qiao provides. And I had to say, like, I remember when I first saw them on Twitter, like I gave them a follow because they were saying some good stuff, and I was like, oh, like I think this is kind of the
Yeah,
stuff
did
we
you
need
just
to
contact
do
them to
right
join
now.
up and
But
be part of the team,
but
or?
yeah, I just basically just volunteered to join up, and my first piece was that one about Yan Gu Dui, that translation piece about poverty alleviation. So that was my first
Oh wow.
contribution
Okay.
to Qiao Collective, and then I translated. Since then, I translated like two more, and like spoke on behalf of Qiao at different events, and that's kind of my role. That's kind of my role at this point. Obviously, you probably saw that Xiao got a new graphic update. So there's a lot of like good stuff going on.
You were
Um,
hiring, I saw. Yeah.
oh yeah. So I mean, we can always use more people, of course, because that's the thing. Like when I saw last week, should I be recording this by the way? Because given what happened with Isabel Cockerell, right? So people like Isabel Cockerell are
Oh yeah.
paid to do this kind of stuff by the
Yeah.
NED, no less. While I have translated three pieces so far. My first one was in what, June? Yeah, late June. So it's early August now, and I've pumped out what, three articles.
Mm.
Honey, as
Nice.
I would love to be paid so I could focus on this full time.
Yeah, but he's too busy studying Xinjiang. God.
Yeah, of course, yes. And that doesn't take time to study Xinjiang.
Right.
Um,
I
uh,
think we have a belief on this podcast that at any time you could go and get the big bucks by saying those what the big media companies want to hear, and we believe anyone who is saying something a little bit different is a lot
absolutely.
of integrity in my
We praise those
term.
people. Yeah. I mean, look at
Yeah.
Aramate. He was working for like the nation. I was working with
Yes.
Grey Zone. He's standing up for the small people.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of
Yeah.
Grey Zone crew as well. All good-looking guys, as we said before, and girls.
Yeah, I mean we have a lot of Vicky shows in the United States, rest assured. So
Oh,
I'm sure
Vicky
you see them
Shoes.
around on Twitter.
Oh, Vicky Shoe. We
I'm
can
sure
talk
you see
about
them
that
around on Twitter,
later.
like what
Um,
Melissa Chan and Jennifer Zhang, like every so often you see kind of their takes on stuff. Oh, what was the other guy? Was it the guy who wrote The Sympathizer? I can't believe I forgot his name. Um, Even he had something to say about like Chinese imperialism, so that was like That was something.
Oh, God.
It was a Pulitzer Prize in the United States. He's a Vietnamese American diaspora.
Oh,
I think
it's
it's
something you and
Oh, really?
I think it's Viet Thanh. I
Viet
can't.
Tang. Oh,
Viet
that's
Thanh, yeah.
not what I said.
So like, and then even he like maybe like a year or two ago has something to say about Chinese imperialism. So it's very easy. It's very easy as an Asian American to go down that path. But
The road that's taken. Who was that? Wasn't that the American poet guy, Robert Frost?
yeah.
Well, what happened to that? You know? Yeah, we had to learn that in Australia. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the United States for you. I mean, the where everybody likes to say they belly the beast, right? But it's a potent media landscape. I understand that Australia wasn't really that heavily affected by the xenophobia until like really recently, like maybe starting 2 years ago. Well, I mean, I know xenophobia has always been like a thing.
Xenophobia, yeah. I don't know. What do you say, Regan? Like maybe 2015? It's always kind of been there.
No, actually, xenophobia has been with Australia since the very beginning.
Oh, you know, you're from Brisbane.
Intricately wound. It's the foundation of this country is based on xenophobia, because from the very beginning there was Chinese immigrants working gold mines and stuff.
Right.
So
the Lemming Flat riots. So,
but it's never been like it's been like an economic racism rather than like a slurs in the street, or I would imagine that.
I think at the beginning there was a lot of slurs. Like there was anti-miscegenation laws, so Chinese people couldn't marry white people at the start.
Absolutely. And
there was also those the law where Chinese people had to pay extra tax, like a whole.
Oh yeah.
And there was also Chinese people used to just get bashed up and take their stuff taken. No one cared. That's why most something like 15% of the population in Victoria used to be Chinese. Now it's like it's starting to catch up again actually, but that's after 100 something years. But yeah, Regan
actually. I was just thinking today. I realized the original Chinatown in Brisbane was in the city, and then there was some sort of anti-Chinese riot, and it was destroyed, and it's now in Fortitude Valley, which is a part of like the clubbing district. So
right. Where's that? Like, is that still in a city or?
Well, the Fortitude Valley is like it's neighboring the city. It's the next suburb along.
Oh. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think in the United States, at least among Asian American circles, I think an oft-stated fact was that the largest mass lynching in United States history was actually in Los Angeles against Chinese immigrants.
Oh wow!
So I had to verify that. I mean, it's said quite often. I never bothered to check.
Wasn't there the San Francisco one as well? Like were there laundry mats or something? Laundry mats getting burnt down or something?
I'm not too familiar in the specifics of that, but I do know that the entire West Coast, California, has committed genocide against Chinese people. Like as in like it was an actual pogrom of either killing or deporting Chinese people, and not by
Chinese Exclusion Act as well. Whatever you call
exactly.
that.
And I know Berkeley Law, I think, had just removed the name from their law school of a guy who literally called for the extermination of the Chinese people if they couldn't get them out of the country.
Berkeley, that's like all Asian, that school.
But that's I think to me that's institutions like Berkeley Law in a nutshell. Is they were first of all that had been there for ages, right? Since like the early 1900s, I think. And second of all, that they made such a big fuss of it when they finally took the name down as if it's some great victory. I mean, they literally just took it down like maybe January, February of this year, and then of course like COVID happened, and then what did Berkeley do for COVID?
Yeah, Regan's from a place which is close to Ipswich, which is where Pauline Hanson, who's really famous for hating Chinese people, is from.
Yeah, her thing was Asians forming sort of ghetto communities within the cities. But there is a couple of suburbs in Brisbane that have, an Asian population, be Vietnamese or Chinese, maximum 15-20%. And they're vibrant suburbs, to be honest. She had but there was
swamped by Asians. That's what she said.
Queensland's different to the rest of Australia in that most of the other states in Australia have one large city, and then there's just the rest of the state, which is quite empty. But Brisbane, relative to the rest of Queensland, is not quite as big. We have lots of other cities like Rockhampton, Mackay, Townsville,
Gold Coast,
and now Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast. So they don't have that cosmopolitan feel that most of these capital cities have. So there's always been a very nationalistic, racist sort of basis that's always pulled about 20% of the vote in Queensland.
Yeah, was it in the 90s when they had a state election and polling hands had like a quarter of the entire Queensland's parliament or something?
She had the balance of power, for like it's such a short period. They what they did is they stole all her policies and then they ended up putting her in jail.
That's right.
And after she actually went to jail, and afterwards she was found to have been put there wrongly. But they took her policies, and
the Liberal Party people. So Liberals are like the centre-right party in our country.
Right. No surprise there. Now I bring up the xenophobia because, believe it or not, I had the privilege of going through Adrian Zen's bibliography the other day. And then I actually, I was reading through his stuff from 2014, 2015, that range, of his early work about Xinjiang. Actually, it's not unreasonable. It's par on course for foreign affairs to say that he noticed that there's an uptick in police spending in Xinjiang, and so he's concerned about the securitization.
I mean, that's true. Yeah,
it's true, right? I mean, to me, it doesn't really mean much coming from somebody sitting comfortably in his living room in a imperial core country, but it's true. So see how that's actually not actually irrational or off the wall conspirational. And I thought maybe I'm just too tired, but actually I found a tweet from Ian Goodwin from early 2018, and he says much the same thing. He says Adrian Zenz might have his biases, as do we all, but he raises good points. So there's actually is a time before it's hard to believe now, but there was actually a time where it wasn't 100% anti-China. Even
people went off
like
the deep end. And
right.
Yeah, it started calling genocide on everything, and yeah.
Well, it's funny because Ian Goodwin was rebuking, the China is forcing Muslims to drink alcohol in Xinjiang, I remember kind of rolling my eyes at that time, but man, what I wouldn't give now for simpler times.
This all changed about halfway through 2019 with the Hong Kong stuff, right?
Actually, when I was retracing the events, because the concentration camp narrative came out in August 2018, with that committee on the elimination of racial discrimination meeting.
Okay.
And it was actually shortly after Secretary of State Pompeo took office as Secretary of State in April of 2018. So I think
that makes a lot of sense.
I suspect maybe it might be connected because, in fact, Adrian Zenz's first suggestions of getting onto the re-education issue was after Pompeo took office. Now, it would be an insult, of course, to suggest that's the only reason. I'm sure the man has been casted his eye on that for a long time before. But it is true that Adrian Zenz's first report about re-education or education, whatever you want to call it, was after Secretary of State Pompeo took office, and of course, so did the Chinese Human Rights Defender report, the infamous one that's based on 8 people. Yeah. That was also after Pompeo took office. And no one needs to be reminded that Pompeo was former CIA director and is very proud to have lied, cheated, and stole.
That's very famous.
Absolutely.
In contravention of his West Point creed, as he himself said so, as posted on the State Department's video of his time at A&M. So it's I mean, I'm not so foolish as to say it's all connected, but it is quite fishy.
It's like the amalgamation of like Cartman plus Hitler, basically. But let's talk about the alcohol thing. You know,
Right.
as you've probably said before, it's very stupid, the whole thing. Like you go to
Right.
Xinjiang, they have like Xinjiang black beer. It's brewed by Uyghurs. It's been,
Right.
they've had like all types of alcohol made thousands of years in that
Yeah.
area.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like anybody who's been to Central Asia in any part, and not just Xinjiang, but like say like I don't know, like anywhere from basically like Khorasan and Iran to Xinjiang, that giant stretch. Basically wherever Persian New Year is celebrated, Nowruz. Like do people just like 10 years ago, Rumi was the talk of the town, remember? Well, in America at least. Like everyone loved Rumi because he was writing poems about love
Oh
and
yeah.
but like these Persian poets have been talking about getting drunk and loving many people for like for like thousand well yeah for like 1,000 years. Their biggest influence was in Central Asia. Like alcohol drinking is very much an indigenous practice and indigenous industry that's been fueling their economy for thousands of years. I don't.
Is look at the photos. Even if you like read about the Mongols, now like a lot of them are Muslim, and they still drink like fermented mare's milk. That's alcoholic.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's just, and plus all those videos are fake anyway, because you can see they're not even being forced. They're drinking out of their own. They're just partying.
Oh, but like the CPC, oh sorry, CCP cadre is like outside the camera holding a pistol to their face, and they have
You better drink that free alcohol.
Let's like it's. I mean,
So ridiculous.
what's so frustrating about these kind of commentators? I mean, like we're talking pre 2018 here, but still, like, what's so frustrating is that a lot of people who clearly don't know even just Central Asia as a very broad region are the ones who are like advancing all this talk, and they're enabled by all the kind of like nativist informants or like the Melissa Chans and Jennifer Zungs of the world, who kind of take themselves on to be authorities on a region they've never actually been to, which is frustrating. And like even so, like even when they interview like the Xinjiang concentration camp survivors, they dress them up to be like hijab and all, because they want
Yeah. They don't wear. They usually
they
do.
want to build like a Muslim front against China. But I mean, again, just go to Central Asia. Like of course, there's hijab provisions, and people will to the degree that the countries will allow the freedom of expression through clothing. I mean, they'll wear the hijab if they want to, but the traditional clothing of the region is a lot more liberal than the stereotypical Saudi Arabian garb. And that's basic historical fact. You can look at the paintings from the contemporary time period. You can go to the country itself and see like all the Pamiris or all the Uzbeks dressing not in hijab while dancing. It's a it's kind of naked what they're trying to angle at, and part of it is predicated on like people's ignorance of Central Asia, much less Islam as a whole.
Like when you told me that Farsi and Dari, was it, and Tajik is like basically the same language, I didn't even know that. Like I was like, whoa, that makes a lot of sense though.
Yeah. That's his own issue, because you can't even get people in the United States to they always ask me, oh, you speak Farsi? Is it Farsi or Persian? And it is actually, it sounds kind of a name, but like it actually is a complicated question, because the State Department does consider Farsi, Dari, and Tajiki to be 3 different languages. But
how similar are they? Well,
you see, here's the thing. At a higher register, you know what I mean by register, right? So if Imam Ali Rahman, the president of Tajikistan, went on TV and gives a speech like he always does, like I can understand that, just knowing Farsi pretty okay. Because
it's like a different accent. Is that it, or
it's accent, and it's also vocabulary choice. But once you get to like the street level of like Tajiki, it's a lot different from the street level of Farsi, and that's why they say a lot of American students who go to Tajikistan to study, they can't study in Iran for obvious reasons. They can't study in Afghanistan for obvious reasons. So the United States usually sends students to Tajikistan to study Persian when there's not a pandemic going on. So one of the complaints that is always being had is that, oh, this is not really Farsi. and a lot of people want to focus on Iranian Persian because that's where that's where the Department of Defense is, but they can't really practice the Farsi in Tajikistan, which is true. Because again, if you talk to like an educated Tajikistani person in Farsi, it's likely they can interface with you no problem. But if you talk to just some person on the street, like just to get like naan or just to get like kurutab,
is it like British English and like Scottish? And the Scottish are like it's like kind of mumbling.
More different. I think even more different than that. Like
okay.
Even when I was there in Tajikistan for a year,
is it like Mandarin? Then you got Sichuanese Mandarin, which sounds like really weird, but it still sounds the same.
I really feel like it's a little bit less the difference between Mandarin and Cantonese. Because I speak both Mandarin and Cantonese. Cantonese is quite different in almost every regard. Like even the same word sounds very different sometimes between Mandarin and Cantonese.
Cantonese are very different though. What about Dari and Farsi? Are they different at all? Or?
They're pretty different too. I'm not as familiar with Dari, but I imagine it's a similar dynamic in terms of like a lot of street level words will be different. But I think
do they share the same media? Are they watching the same movies and listening to the same music? Or
like how we do with England and stuff. Yeah.
I don't think I can tell you. I don't think I can tell you that. I can only say that Iran definitely does not share the same media with Tajikistan, which actually Tajikistan a lot of there's like when I was there was like three major platforms and one of them was Radio Free Europe. So like it's and that's actually before I even knew like what Radio Free was. Like I'm actually really ashamed of myself for reading so much of that reporting. I mean, okay, let's be frank. Like radio,
there was music on there, right?
Say again.
Like,
what's the music like? Yeah,
the music was good. I guess.
It's quite, that's what I would say it's quite different because like in Iran, like it's for lack of a better word, there's more Masriki influence. I don't like to say Middle East, but like like influence from like Iraq and that kind of area. I think you can tell the difference if you listen between Iranian and Tajiki music.
Yeah, because Tajikistan's right next to Xinjiang, right? So surely there'll be a lot of
much closer to the Indian subcontinent. So when you listen and look at a lot of the instruments in like traditional Tajiki music, including Badakhshani music, like Pamiri music, they will remind you a lot of Indian sounds, Indian timbres, and Indian. So you don't quite hear that as much in Iranian music, but in Tajikistan, they're of course very proud of Badakhshan because it's half their land area with 1% of an ethnic minority population. So they also have restive borderland issues from time to time. But yeah, they're very proud of that. So they make sure to really incorporate a lot of Badakhshani influence into their own folk music, which only makes sense. I mean, because it's right there, right? So even cynical politics aside. So that's why like if you ever go on Douyin and like there are like at least 2 channels specifically focused on Tashkent Tajik autonomous county. You'll notice the music sounds a lot different from even say like Kashgar or like the Tarim Basin.
Yeah, because I always think look at the map. You see, because you go from Xinjiang and you go west, it's Tajikistan or Afghanistan. Right. So surely, because it's kind of a crossroads, are they culturally similar to Uyghurs or?
So here's the thing. When I was in Tajikistan, I actually did study a little bit of Uzbek. That's why I told you I can read out Uyghur script. And I know like the basics of Uyghur words because I studied actually a little bit of Uzbek. I once asked my Uzbek teacher this. I asked, hey, like, can you? I saw that Uzbek and Uyghur they're of the same like a language family. Like even within the even within the Turkic languages, they are the same branch. So I asked, could you talk to Uyghurs? And this person told me, actually, yeah, when I come across them in the bazaar, we can talk as if there's no problem. I would say there's an especial linguistic link at least between like Uzbeks and Uyghurs. They can interface almost without any problem, which is quite fascinating. And I think the Uzbek Tajik Uyghur kind of like Sprachbund, because Tajik actually does use a few Uzbek words here and there too, does kind of show a little bit of a wider cultural area. I would say that based on my limited understanding, but I would say that there's an affinity there.
Have you read anything like when you're traveling to China? There's like Uyghur books or Uyghur music. because I don't know what they're saying at all. Yeah.
They're actually quite common, Uyghur books. I'm sure Uyghur music too, but I didn't quite hear it when I was around. I think you'd have to be in like
Because they have
Xinjiang.
Uyghur TV channels in Xinjiang as well.
Oh
Uyghur
yeah,
schools.
actually,
Uyghur everything. Yeah.
It's called Yurtun, right? Is that what the one you're
Yeah,
talking?
I think so. I'm not too sure.
It's actually kind of interesting because I was trying to look into Yurtum. They're kind of a black hole, which is like always sketchy. But like I think Yurtum is Chinese, but they broadcast to the Uyghur community abroad as well. And Yurtum actually means my homeland in Uyghur language.
Oh, okay.
So,
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so I think they're Chinese, but I couldn't find too much about them. But yeah, Uyghur media is actually very common. When I was in Beijing, just literally just pre-COVID, like COVID was running around Wuhan when I was in Beijing in January. So like I went to a bookstore because I love bookstores, and there's an entire section for 民族学, like like study of ethnic minorities, and then you can find plenty of Uyghur language books completely in Uyghur, no Chinese in them whatsoever. And I picked one up. It was nicely made from 2011. And I read out. I can't read Uyghur, but I can pick out the words based on my Persian knowledge and based on my experience in Russian knowledge, because there's a lot of Russian words in Uyghur actually.
Oh, really?
But anyways, like yeah, and then because Soviet influence, you can have a whole talk about that too. But I think Carl Jha might be more qualified for that. So when I was I was reading out, sounding out this book, and I could pick out the author name. I think it was Tursun Udmish or something like that. It was a book about the Uyghur Mukam tradition, which is a little bit overhyped within China. I will concede readily, but it's a book about Mukam, which is a musical tradition in among the Uyghur people. And then I actually even made out the publishing information, which was Xinjiang Polytechnic Press. That's kind of when I got thinking, I cannot actually think of a time that I was in, say, like Washington, D.C., and I come across a book completely in like an indigenous language by an indigenous press. Like publishing a book is a multi-stage process, right? So the fact that like it's probably not that profitable in China to have an only Uyghur book without a bilingual edition, right? But here it is, like an entire book in Uyghur.
I bought some of those Minzhu books before. I bought some Hui history books.
Right.
But of course, Hui read Chinese as well, so I didn't notice there was a difference. That's interesting because they always talk about the language thing being like genocide on China's side, but China actually seems to be trying harder than America, who's actually letting out the indigenous languages die out. And
it's
super critical.
Really frustrating for me personally because you said there's a lot of native groups in California. And I actually kind of hesitated when you said that. Can you still hear me, by the way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regan, are you there? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really frustrating for me personally as a citizen of the United States, because in this dialogue right now, cultural genocide, especially coming from fellow Americans, because it's like, hey, you should know what a genocide is. You should know what a cultural genocide is, because you're literally in the world's biggest perpetrator of that. If you spend even half the energy you spend criticizing China or like condemning China on cultural genocide of Uyghurs, we could get so much done about getting federal funding for indigenous language revival, or even just like making sure they don't encroach on their land for corporate interests.
And I'm not sure if they fund
the pipeline. The pipeline in Dakotas is going through sacred land and like affecting water for people. The judge halted the construction, and the company is still building it. Like, where's the attention on that? I see so much more attention. I see John Oliver talking about Xinjiang, but we have a genocide going on right now. Like this pipeline is affecting the water of a people without prior consultation or shoddy consultation.
That is exactly the painful thing is that's how it is in Australia as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Because we have a total colonial project going here, which is taking the land as much as possible so we can dig out the minerals underneath.
Right.
So
to say that's whataboutism. You can condemn both sides. It's like, yes, true, but you're a citizen of the United States. You have more agency over Dakota pipeline access than you do over Xinjiang. Like, I mean, all said and done, what can you do about Xinjiang? Isn't China, like, unless the United States takes over China and topples the government, there's not much you can do about it. But you can go out and hold like the Dakota access pipeline accountable to the Sioux people, like here and now.
Yeah.
You have you have impact as a United States citizen in that. You even have more impact over Ryukyu, or like they say Okinawa, because the United States military is there because Japanese government, which has long genocided Ainu language, and also is trying to eliminate the Ryukyuan languages. It's because Japan says build in Okinawa. We don't want you in Japanese mainland.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
Japan is definitely. I'll put a point in. They're definitely the number one, like, what the most fascist and all right wings want to be, because they're the country that can actually actively deny war crimes and still be proud of the culture of like the nationalist part of the culture. I mean, that's the dream for all the like super
They
right
seem
wing.
to have got away with it for.
Yeah, and they can always say, "You're hurting my feelings. You're putting a comfort women's statue to remember all the victims of rape." I'm like, that's fucked up, man.
yes,
Like, and then they can dump all the reparations on basically their yellow indigenous groups like the Okinawan Ryukyu or Ainu. Yeah.
right.
I know, yeah. That's funny that like in certain online people might think that Japan is like they say it's a successful country because it's homogenous, you know.
Yeah.
They've done such a good job at erasing all these other fucking voices.
Like even karate is like Japanese now, but it was Okinawa in the first.
Yeah.
Oh, for real?
It's from Okinawa. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of their culture. I mean, the only way that Japan could trade with China was through Okinawa for hundreds of years. So they basically hid that they were in control of Okinawa or like bullying them for like 300 years. It was just really fucked up situation, man.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying though. Like China's not perfect, of course. I think you would be the first in line to point out its faults. But like, I mean, even just not too long ago, 2016, there were several articles from 2010 to 2016 about the women-only mosques in Hui, and the women imams in Hui culture. And like, it's funny because the NPR no less, had an article, and the last sentence was, so women imams actually do not face the biggest struggle from the state because they have a lot of state support, but from free market economics. So it was a different time where they were really trying to portray China as like a ruthlessly capitalist country.
Yeah.
And that was good, and that was was going to do in the distinct cultural practices of the Hui people. Now it's like the Chinese government is culturally genociding Uyghurs, when like literally 4 years ago it was, Chinese government is actually trying to do a lot to preserve minority cultures.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's another point. I really doubt that the U.S. government funds mosques in America, but like as you've been to the mosque my family set up 400
oh
years
yeah, thanks for the pointer. That was
and that's mostly funded these days. Maintenance is by the Chinese government, and they're building more mosques if the demand there is increases. And China's built so many mosques. While they keep making these stories about mosques being taken down, but the numbers don't add up, because there's been over like 3,000 mosques in the last decade, and it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Right. And a lot of the historical ones are of course still standing. Maybe they get renovation, but like these historically large mosques can get like really packed on the holidays. Like I think somebody on Twitter posted a photo of the Dongguan Grand Mosque in Xining, Qinghai on Eid al-Qurban or Eid al-Adha. And it was, and the entire block, you know how Chinese cities are set up. The entire block is just like packed. Like,
yeah, that's because especially Hui Chinese, it's kind of like being, Christian in the Western countries. Like they only go on like Easter or Christmas. Right. So when it's Eid or anything like that, that's when the Hui actually does go. When they actually put on their little caps and like, let's get out their suits or their like, Supreme jumpers and pretend to be Muslim for that day. That's what keeps happening. And they just get packed than the usual numbers.
Right. No, so like.
Badass.
But yeah, I mean, I remember when I was in Qinghai, like just this last year. It's an interesting place. I really like Xining. It's a low key kind of out of the way place. So not as many tourists. Like once you get to Tara Monastery, the major yellow hat monastery in the area, like it's rated 5A by the Chinese government, so there's appropriately like a lot of tourists there, and that was annoying. But the city itself, the city itself was actually quite livable. I was really pleased with Xining, and like they had really good places to like just stop and have tea, or they have a wonderful bookstore there.
Is that next to the lake, that one, or not?
Yeah, there's the one that's next to the namesake, the Qinghai Lake, and it.
Yeah, Qinghai Lake. Is the sea right next to it, like Xining, or is it not? Because it's a huge lake.
Like I would say like 2-3 hours away from it.
Definitely on the calendar for the next if we ever can go out of Australia.
As soon as the borders open.
Yeah, we're gonna do the Jerry trip. Me and Regan gonna go down to Gansu and whatever. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no,
let's ride it.
There's a yellow hat monastery in Gansu as well called the Labrang Monastery. It's definitely worth a visit.
Yeah, it's a cultural crossroads because you got Tibetans there.
Oh,
You got
definitely.
Salas, you got the Boanzu, which is probably the most saddest name you can get because it literally means security guard.
Right.
And
I was looking at that. I was wondering where they get the name from. But I was really surprised at the religious diversity of southern Gansu. It really is like in this kind of nestled away in the hills kind of area. But there's like a lot of Hui, there's a lot of Tibetan, there's a lot of all sorts of cultures just mixing and religions are mixing. That's the thing about that stretch between Xining and Gansu and Qinghai in general. It's very religiously diverse. I actually have not seen anything like it before.
Road. Like
right. And even United States, we're so proud of diversity, right? But when you're in Xining, like people are actually wearing their religious garb. Like they're openly
they wear hijabs there, yeah.
Right, they're openly expressing their religious affiliation, and like everybody, like there's a lot of religions in the city. So I don't actually see that in the United States. I don't see people being so open about the.
Well, you see all those videos of like Karens attacking people for speaking Spanish or like, wearing hijab. So probably why.
Yeah, but in Xining, if you ever go, you'll see what I'm talking about. Like there's actually a diversity of clothing, which I would say is pretty underrated in terms of like kind of observing a society. Because when you really think about it, there's not actually too much diversity of clothing in most cases. Usually just a woman.
No, that's rare.
Like in like a global south country.
Everyone's just sort of modern core. Kind of.
Yeah, everything's just kind of get melted down into t-shirts and shorts, which, I mean, it is what it is. It is comfortable.
Actually, I've found the fashion in China is quite mainstream. Everyone's sort of dressed the same, I guess, in the cities bit. But like, I get like in Australia, like we have subcultures of styles and stuff. I didn't see that as much.
Oh, they do. It's like the otaku anime. You were in Yunnan, right?
In the big cities, maybe.
Yeah, you were in Yunnan, were you, or?
Oh no, I haven't been to Yunnan yet. But
I've been Rizi.
I've been Guangzhou, Chengdu, and Kunming. Yeah, so I haven't been to the big cities, so I guess it's a bit more cosmopolitan there.
They're both big cities, but
Guangzhou also has a long-standing African and Muslim population.
Yeah.
I was actually there as well.
My 10th great grandfather or something he did like the writing for the mosque there, the huge one. What's it called? I can't remember the name. Yeah.
Yeah, but what really caught me about international affairs, like maybe April or so. Like, remember that Guangzhou racism incident? And like,
yes.
Everybody was very eager. Everybody jumped on it. They were like, China's racist, China's anti-black, blah blah blah. But what got lost in, of course, the hubbub was Chinese central government got involved and like resolved the problem in like 2 weeks, within 2 weeks, and like met with the African Union, met with local African community leaders, and like set up a system of like information just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And like literally, I kid you not, literally half a month later after the resolution had issue, the United States police kills the son of a Gambian diplomat. Can you believe it?
Let's not talk about George Floyd either. I mean, that happens, in a month later, and it's just
seriously. And can you believe it? I was really not really worried, but because it happens every year. But I was kind of gearing up for the annual like China's a monster when will they talk about Tiananmen, June 4th hate session. So, but then George Floyd actually the first George Floyd protest was I think June 3rd. So actually, Tiananmen got rained on this year because it just got completely overshadowed. I mean, of course, they still pushed it, but it got overshadowed by George Floyd really quickly, which is interesting.
Yeah, well, they did push it. I mean, they established a new country on the day, so.
Yeah, it's going really well, I hear. Like, I think it was your tweet that said that they lost half the population because Steve Bannon got exiled.
Yeah. It turns out they just basically recruit all Falun Gong to their country, so.
Apparently they have a giant Discord server, like legit, like 50,000 people.
Oh, really?
We need to get in there.
What's the deal?
I've never been on Discord or any of that shit, so because I don't really game that sort of way. I don't know.
I just can't kind of imagine though, like, because everyone in Falun Gong is like 95, And he's just like all these 95-year-old grannies on like this gamer talking app.
I know Falun Gong is a favorite topic on this emerging podcast, but yeah, they're present in the United States as well. I was driving in the middle of rural Texas once, like literally middle of nowhere. Like you can see the stars middle of nowhere, like no highway light middle of nowhere, and in the distance a light appears, and it's like Shenyun.
What? like actually dancing there, or like in the middle of the desert or something, or?
It was like the middle of like the Texan woodlands. Like I had just taken my friend to hiking in the middle of central Texas, and we were driving on the way back to Austin. So it was the woodlands, and like I kid you not, like yeah, you can see the stars kind of middle of nowhere. Like literally just stopped at a gas station. That's the only light along and like several miles out, and sure enough, the Shenyun advertisement was right there, as if I needed to look at it while I was refueling my car.
Man, they're everywhere. You can't get rid of them.
You can't escape it. It's like that's why the funniest black hole meme when they first photographed the black hole was the one where they zoom in and they see the Shenyun advertisement in there, because God forbid they would actually do that.
Everything is Shenyun, man. Everything.
It's I had a friend who watched it once and they said it was awful, and like they summarized it for me so I didn't have to watch it. They told me long time ago China had culture, and then the communists ruined everything. The end.
Yeah.
And you paid what, like 90? I think no, it's subsidized, right? You get really cheap tickets for it, I think.
Yeah, because it's basically propaganda. I mean, it just looks like one grade above square dancing grandmas. So.
And ever since I heard you on the first episode, I wanted to address this. Like, yes, it is incredibly corny for Chinese propaganda to push people dancing on the town square. I get it. I also think it's very cringe. But
it's also true, though, I guess.
But it's also true, and I have to say, if I ever seen an Alone powwow in Union Square, San Francisco, or like a Tongba powwow, Tongba gathering in Los Angeles' Square of the People. Well,
wait, they do that in San Fran as well. The dance.
They don't. That's what they did. The only time
if you're traveling in another country and you see a bunch of people dancing and one of them's like, "Hey, come and join in," you'd love that. That's a classic Instagram moment.
But what I'm saying is, like, I don't see indigenous presence in American cities. Like, for real. And like when you're in Xi'an, like don't even go as far west as Xinjiang, right? Like Xi'an, like Hui people.
Go down the city center, go to the Hui districts.
Right, and it's not Chinese music. You can listen to the music. It's not Chinese being spoken. Whereas
Shanxihua is like.
Oh, okay, fine.
It's really bad Mandarin. I mean, no offense to my Xi'an mates, okay?
Okay, fine, but you know what I mean, right? I think I saw once an indigenous group dancing in Los Angeles public square, but it was like a one-time thing, like a one-time event.
Yeah, I mean, they're organic. The grandmas are organic, but what is just annoying? It's like they're always showing videos of Uyghurs dancing, but the thing is, like when you hang out, because I grew up with the Uyghur community, right?
Right.
They do dance a lot, and it's a thing, but it gets really annoying because people don't know that, and when they see it, they're thinking Chinese people are forcing them to dance because of their lack of understanding.
Yeah.
It's like they have AK-47s outside. It's like dance. Like,
but I swear, dude, I've been looking at these videos, and I think there's one man there who just really loves the attention. He's always there. I swear. Like
that one old guy with the long beard.
Yeah, and he's like always dancing there, and like I either he really enjoys it, or I don't know, but it's just kind of funny that he's like literally always there. I see him in like almost every Cash Card video. It's really funny.
Definitely, yeah. That's true. Yeah, the guy with like the 10 cameras on that one.
It's so cringe, but what can you do? Tourists gonna tourist, which actually I think it was like more than 200 million tourists in 2019. Which when you look at the documentaries from CGTN, that's actually quite. I mean, not that we should be careful about tourism as social progress, right? But like, the region saw attacks every year from like 1990 to 2016. So to have 200 million people.
Good point.
I think 200 million people like visiting the region by the end of 2019, like in 1 year.
Yeah,
that's actually quite something. I mean, yeah, and I won't say too much more than that because I mean the region is of course very complex. I guess that's what I get frustrated about, because like even me who studied it for quite a while, at least a decade at this point, like there's just so much I don't know. There's just so much I can't know without there. And even when I go there, I think even Jerry Gray makes it very clear. Like, you go there as a temporary presence, you know. There's thousands of problems in any locality, but for the most part,
visiting a place does not give you enough perspective to really know.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think any of us will be the first to say like there's serious problems. I mean, like we just said earlier in this talk, like Adrian Zen's 2015 assertion of like excessive securitization. I mean, it's not like, I don't know if you find too many people who will take serious issue with that concern.
I mean, me and Regan definitely, we 100% agree. There's discrimination towards Uyghurs in China. Like, that's 100%. But it's not.
We've actually just talked about that in a recording of an episode that's coming out in like 2 days, where we talk about
exaggerating it as like mass murder, like equivalent to the Holocaust. That's just offensive to many people.
And it just, and like I said, like, it just directs attention. This whole like international human rights, like I've started to witness, it's just a funnel. It's a funnel away from the United States' own human rights. And the perfect response to that is whataboutism, which is frustrating, because it's like, no, you are an American taxpayer. Your taxes are going to bombing Iraq, starving Syria, starving Yemen, like,
and also influencing Uyghurs.
Right. So you are complicit in this, and I don't understand what else can I get you to understand that. And when I hear people read land acknowledgement statements about like how they're on unceded land, it's like, do you even take 10 seconds to think about that? What does it mean if you're on unceded land? I mean, it takes me 2 seconds. It means you're an illegitimate presence. I mean, there's a lot more nuance to it than that, of course. But like, the basic fact is that if you are not indigenous to this region and you're on unceded land, that means you're illegally here by the United States' own standards. Like, 100%. Can you think about that for a second? What does that mean? Then why are you still here? Why are you still profiting? Why are you building your career off of giving this performative land acknowledgement statement? It really drives me up the wall more than anything, even more than the Xinjiang narrative, because it's just like, you're just not thinking. They do it as performative.
A lot of them do it for their own view.
It's just a career building. If you just told me you want to look good for like your friends, fine, just tell me that so I don't bother you anymore. But if you're gonna give me some crap about like wanting to speak truth to power, like you can sod right off, because there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of issues here in this country, and we could use a lot of attention. But if you're gonna scream about Xinjiang after watching a John Oliver video and reading Human Rights Watch,
it's sad that everyone takes this random British dude with a very annoying accent as 100% truth, like whenever he talks. And I mean, he does a lot of good domestic stuff, but.
Well, I'm not going to rail on it too much, because I don't really watch that kind of stuff too often. But just the fact that for somebody, like, it's insulting to me personally too, having been to like Qinghai, having been in Tajikistan, having seen like Central Asia, because even Qinghai to an extent is Central Asia. And
pretty much. It's not even part of China proper. Yeah, it's an
external region. Yeah. So having been to adjacent region, and I will freely admit, I don't know what's happening in Xinjiang. I haven't been there. I can't comment on Xinjiang. I make that very clear all the time. And yet these people still think they know China better than me.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about in another recording, me and Regan. You got that Go Young guy. He's actually lived there his whole life, and he's just the Mongolian guy's getting attacked by everyone for talking about his life. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the saddest one. That just like, I feel bad for the guy, but he is, as you say, a dude of integrity.
Is that what I sound like? No.
It is. To me, when you say dude, it sounds like you have an umlaut over the U. So it's like a did. Like, I have never. It takes me effort to say dude, and then like integrity is just like, I don't know. I had to switch it out.
You live in California. Dude should be in your blood by now.
What did I say in Texas? Like,
I can't.
Hey, y'all. Is that it? Or?
I can't do a Texan accent, but I can tell you that y'all, we say y'all all the time. Oh. And so when I left Texas, I actually wanted to get rid of y'all, because I mean, for a lot of reasons, I don't like Texas. You
need to get a surfboard, and you need to get down to that fucking California beach, wax it up.
California's, what I was alluding to earlier, like, yes, I don't have to deal with rednecks anymore in Texas, but in some ways, these urban bleedhearts are even worse. Like, at least, here's the thing. At least with Texans, and like, take it from somebody who grew up in Texas. Somebody might be racist to you. Somebody might think you have an inferior race. But strangely, very strangely, that doesn't preclude them from giving you individual respect. Which I will never understand that dynamic in terms of like,
100%.
I think you are an inferior culture, but you are cool, and I will talk to you as an equal, because that happens in Texas all the time. But once you get to California, I mean, everyone, Asian Americans, this is one of the pointless arguments that we always have. But I would dare say that California is worse, because people in California, they say they support Asian issues, they're progressive, but then they never talk to you. And then when you actually bring up an Asian issue, they don't engage. They just kind of snub you.
Yeah,
and they never,
I mean, in Melbourne, it's the same. Like, Melbourne's sort of like the hippie land of Australia. Like, everyone's progressive here. Apparently,
Right.
they have the most Nazis per capita in Australia. But anyway, so we got these, Asians. They're like, yeah, I really care about. They basically care about anything that Americans care about. That's on John Oliver.
Right.
But they're like, yeah, man, yeah, mate, I really care about the Black Lives Matter. And they go in, and then they're like, yeah, I care about this and that and this and that. But then the next day, they go around like, saying something really racist about the Indigenous people in Australia themselves.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just like they can't think for themselves, and they just do it all to perform, to look good in front of their mates.
It's all about Instagram posts.
Yeah.
Well, with that said, the biggest lesson takeaway from all this is go vote for Kamala Harris.
Yeah, she's half Indian, is it, or Tamil? Yeah, Tamil.
Yeah, which she was San Francisco politician, I believe. So I think she did go from like San Francisco to California politician to like throwing her hat in the ring for president to VP nominee in like less than a decade. Which
I was just watching her interview on the Breakfast Club, where she was talking to like a bunch of black DJs.
Oh, Charlamagne the God, DJ Envy, Angela Yee.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, maybe I could be like this one day. But she just had an act on it. She was just lying the whole time. She's joking about smoking weed and stuff, and
listening to what is it again? Snoop Dogg
and just dodging questions, and I mean, the thing is, I guess she's better at that than Joe Biden is, and
but Joe Biden's funny though. Like, he's like, "Come on, man, I thought you liked me, man," and we're like, "Oh, that's hilarious."
Can't wait for the debates.
Well, y'all actually know a lot more than I do, because I have long lost interest in electoral politics. Because I mean, as a Chinese,
as a
Chinese in the United States, you don't actually see anything change. Like every 4 years, the country becomes hella racist against China and Chinese people, and like nothing ever gets progresses. We're still at war, nothing changes. So,
is your background from Hong Kong originally? Or?
I'm not actually originally from Hong Kong, but that is my background.
With parents, yeah.
Yeah.
That makes you obviously have a lot to say about that.
It was hard to keep
hold
track.
on, we're hitting an hour now, so let's save this one and we'll talk about that another time, because I think
we
we
could be on again.
Episode.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, real good having you on the show, man.
And thank you so much again. I know I kind of blabbered a bit, but it was
No, that was
it's great, man. So good.
英雄花间意，歌曲人影稀。谁知明日是分离，台上望真心。唱一曲别离，谁在君怀里？昨日相依，今夜又相离，各领笑泪滴。一出悲喜，终离间。 心。